Good morning. It is currently 9:08, Tuesday, June 24th, 2025. So, I was wrong about my weekly expectation that I mentioned yesterday. If we look at, I'll just use the actual intermarket. We did not reverse at this civvy. We reached into it for that retracement to sweep this low here. I'd be better off looking at a 15-minute chart. So again, towards the end of that VOD yesterday, I noted how this this AM session formed this retracement here at 9:30. At 10 o'clock, we swept this high, reached back into the constant inclusion of this gap here, which I believe is a weekly civvy, yep. And then repelled lower, swept this low, reached back into that 6,000 institutional price level, and exploded aggressively higher. Reaching for this high, and then reaching for a high at the weekly rejection block during the overnight session. So I'm not going to force a high here. If price doesn't want to give me a retracement, then I'll sit out. We're currently in a deep premium, so I'm not going to look for longs. But if we do get a retracement, I'm looking for price to draw below this 4-hour bounce price range back into this monthly rejection block and converging weekly civvy high. So that's the expectation here. Looking for a possible retracement here, here, and here. So I have all these levels noted on my trading template. So we see how that high forms here. We break this low here, break above the highs back into the civvy, kind of contracting. Since yesterday was a large range day, we're gonna be very, very cautious. That's why I didn't look for any trades from 8:30. We can see 8:30 swept this low, moved higher back into, oops, this gap here, and is not really showing much of a reaction away. We're kind of just meandering here. So 9:30 equities open is in 20 minutes. We're gonna watch that. And then there's also a medium impact news event at 10. I don't really have anything that I'm looking for entry-wise in particular. I'm just waiting for more information. So just being patient, not forcing an entry. I like to record my review for yesterday and kind of go over what I did wrong to anticipate that bearish retracement. There's a couple things that I outweighed in my analysis. I also believe that overconfidence was a bit of an issue. I've been consistently right for the past couple of days, sniping highs and lows, and when that tends to occur, it tends to make me see things, makes me weigh probabilities a little bit differently. I knew that that price was at fair value. With the draw being higher, I just wanted to see that quick retracement to induce that sell side before we got this huge run up. But I'll go over different things in that review to better understand why price did explode higher instead of sweep those relative equal lows. So I'm not looking for that anymore. If we start to get aggressive in this retracement, that could be a draw again. But really that main draw of these all-time highs is the expectation as it was in the monthly analysis. So. the trending overnight session and not necessarily the overnight session regarding Asian range, because the Asian range kind of contracts. You can include everything after 6. Where is this? I should probably zoom in. This is the new week or new day. Opening gap low. What's that? 455 close. So currently, if 930 was to say open here, we'd have this entire range. If I could just grab this rectangle, this would be the new day opening gap. If it was 930 right now and open at this level, we can see that right now that concentration lands right at that low here. So if I was looking for a short position, I'd be aiming for this low here for the retracement back into this daily inversion. You see a low, which is right here. So similar circumstance to yesterday. If I'm anticipating a retracement all the way to here, I'm exiting here, watching as price drops lower. Low hanging fruit objective. So we get a nice reaction above this high here. 915. I'm just waiting for more information. This here is the 15-minute balance price range. This here. See if price wants to sweep above this high. I'm not placing my stop at this high because it's not really, it's not something I'd be comfortable with. I guess it would be salient that I could do that. It's not really forming an aggressive displacement lower. We just sweep this low barely and then kind of contract here. But again, draw slower. Oops. I'll place this limit here. Still only risking 0.25% till we get some equity in this account, and then I'll move back up to 0.5. Current divergence here as price breaks higher on YM. Lower high, and then a lower high. So we're looking for a sympathy rally above this high to lead into this balanced price range here. Minute rejection block here. Go to 1 hour chart. The 1 hour concentration lines up with that entry also. Six one three two, 6132. Wait that to clean up the chart. See a similar reaction here. Buyers respecting that upper quartile. Price fails just short of that constant pressure there. Look for 930 to drive price higher above this high here, and then into this 15-minute bounce press range. Put this one tick lower. Five minutes till 9:30. Looking for price to start creating a trading profile post 9:30. It is 12 o'clock. So we have a lot of contraction here. Implied dealing range looks like this. But I guess the takeaway from yesterday was, even though, I know what I'm doing, I've studied this stuff for years, I trust my analysis. Sometimes there's things that I still need to work on. I'm still human, so I make mistakes. And yesterday was a good example of that. I did a good job of switching my bias once I saw that 9:30 protraction was to induce retail shorts and to aim for the highs. Even though I missed an entry, I managed my emotions wonderfully and was able to tape read that protraction. So you really got to something that I didn't talk to you about too much, but I believe it does mention in that 2022 mentorship that you're going through, is that sugar coating in your journal. So really, you can't beat yourself up. You have to be your cheerleader and celebrate the things you do right and really sugarcoat them. That's something I'll show in that review. So I'll probably combine those two together because I haven't quite done the intricacy of my reviews, so I'll show you that. I could also live stream these once I get enough people interested. That's something I'd like to do. I probably wouldn't trade in front of you. I'd probably be tape reading. The reason I'm doing this is because nobody can copy my trades. I just don't really want that liability. And, people are annoying. If they copy my trades and they don't pan out, or they do something with too much risk, which would be their decision, they might blame me, and that's just, there's no, 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 there's no That would just be annoying. I don't want to deal with that. See, the body's respecting that Contractionary that civvy wonderfully before 9:30. You got a minute left. Right back at that 8:30 open. If I go to 1 minute chart really quickly. Just make my own. Watch this low. There it is. Swept and reached into that counter encroachment here. We can see if price wants to reverse higher or if it wants to continue extending. I believe it'll probably continue to extend. See if it wants to get below this low. Currently reaching that lower quartile of this wick here. We'll see if we can get that reversal off of this lower quartile to reach into these highs here, or if it wants to continue extending. So that new day opening gap can be recorded now with that 9:30 open here. And you can see new day opening gap low 750. See that concept pressure landing right at that inversion daily busy. Press reaching back in this gap. We'll like to continue extending above this high. So you see there's no respect to this gap. This is not a bearish market structure shift in model entry. I want to note this bounce price first though, for inversion. We'll see if we can extend off of that high of that bounce price range and break above this high. Currently between constant correction here and this low. It's contracting here, accumulating orders. You see that better on a 50 chart. Staying aggressively lower, it's probably going to attack these lows now. Let's get rid of this. It could just be rejecting off this rejection block. I'd like this to not be treated as respect relative to retracing back into here and moving lower. Would like it to just reject off this rejection block and then move higher. I'm not going to focus on the longs here and get my mind preoccupied on these lower time frames. We're just gonna go right back to the 5-minute chart. Price is not really wanting to break above this SIBI. It's too early to call it. It may just aggressively draw lower off of it into this low and not break above this high. I still want to see that sympathy rally. We got it in NQ, that break above, but we're still lagging in ES. I'll show you. Right here. This one little wick. Leg behind. See if we can break above this rejection block here that rests at that consecration. Start breaking above this high. Press reach at that consecration. See how the consecration rest right at equilibrium, also this implied dealing range. The reason I got off of those lower time frames is because I noticed myself getting emotional once we got that retracement here. Again, if I was to leave this on, this still would have been a position that I would be in if I was actually trading this. But these lower time frames do tend to do that. I don't want to get wrapped up in my emotions, so I just immediately get off. There's little things like that where you'll notice that maybe you're the opposite. Maybe you'll get to the higher time frames and you'll start second guessing your buy, stuff like that. So you'll understand the things that you do that that kind of pull you away from success. So for me, it's usually the lower time frames. I'll start to overthink these market maker models. So these market maker models are fractal. So say we're in a bearish model here. Inside of this model, you're going to have little, actually it'd be better to do it like this. Little models inside of here. I'll start to overthink like the intricacies of each retracement here. The fractalness of everything. This is a really crude depiction of what I'm trying to explain, but I'll overthink the very minor fluctuations over the larger time frame perspective. That's something that is a weakness for me that I'm working on. So, see, we broke above this high here. Still have that divergence between these lower highs, looking for price to break above. We did reach right back into that bearish rejection block though. I find myself more comfortable also forecasting these daily ranges rather than these short-term scalps. That's just my personality. Again, you may be different. You'll learn how your strengths and weaknesses as you develop as a trader. So, but right now, I just want you to focus on the terminology. Getting used to the verbiage. So while this is the main draw on liquidity, we're also watching for this high for our entry. So I usually do something like this. Main draw on liquidity, this is like the minor draw on liquidity. I'm going to combine these. So it's the relative equal. Can organize my chart. See, we're pushing above this rejection block. See if we get back above this high and kind of reach into our entry. Why I'm aggressively moving higher. I'm gonna use this chart very briefly. Still watching this high. See how YM is aggressively pushed above this high here. So a little bit of laggardness in ES and in Q. This YM creates this impulse projection higher. Currently creating a divergence here, but we're expecting that to break as YM ES breaks above this high. And there's the high. Sometimes I'll even do this. I guess it's for the people that are watching this on fast forward or sweeping through the VOD. We have that medium impact news driver. And in a little over 15 minutes. That's something we'll be watching. It's actually 3 news drivers. It's not medium. We have Powell. And some consumer confidence numbers. If we start to approach this 10 o'clock news driver. And we haven't reached this entry. I'll lower it a little bit to like the constant encroachment in case of spread if we create like a quick movement into it and then reverse lower. Back into this rejection block. Due to the high forming here, I'm actually just gonna try that now. I really could have my stop loss here, I don't feel like doing that. Relative equal highs here, here. Thank you, reaching into its bounce price range. Here. Push back into the high. There's the entry at that bounce price range. Still looking to see if we can reach into this constant encroachment in the high of this bounce price range. This is kind of what I'm measuring off of. It would be a 15-second chart, the easiest to look at. Chart will sweep above this high. This price reaches the 6 journal range premium. I heard a little bit of humming in my previous VOD. I believe it's my PC, but I turned my AC down just in case. Might have to find a new spot for my microphone on the opposite side of my desk. I worked through OBS to try to get the noise suppression to negate that sound. And I did it to the best of my ability, but approaching that 10 o'clock macro, that 20 minutes in between 10 o'clock, 10 minutes before, 10 minutes after, 9:50 to 10:10. That's an interesting comment. I don't really know what to say to this. Lemire, I'm unsure. I don't do crypto. We see how that macro begins seeking discounts, reaching back into this SIBI low. We're gonna watch as price trades lower inside of this order block here. Lows, relative week lows, previous week highs noted. The other reason I suggest not watching, I know there's a lot of videos in the mentorship, but trying to stay away from like the 2 times, 3 times speed of those videos is the series kind of teaches you patience in a way, and you need patience in trading. You need to be able to just sit still and know that you're doing the right thing by doing so. Yes, I would love for price to just reach this, give me 0 drawdown, and then reach my target, but that's just not how it goes. You get a lot of garbage in between, a lot of, retracements and different things you kind of have to sit through. If price reversed off of this Civi high and we're back into this high, I'm not anxious. I know what I'm looking for. I know the entry, the stop loss, like I know where I'm setting things and why I'm setting them. Nothing surprises me. I don't act off emotions. I'm completely calm, robotic. And that took a lot of time for me to learn as someone who's very ADHD brain. I think very quickly, which is why I thought that I would be best as a scalper, but it ended up being too much information, kind of overwhelmed me. So I found myself, this 5-minute chart is kind of the minimum that I'm usually forecasting these trades with. When I'm working my 9-to-5 job, it's entering off of 15-minute levels, setting them, having alerts, and just trusting that all the back testing, all of the demo trading, everything that I've done, trusting the confidence in my ability to forecast these markets, and just allowing price to trade, to move around, to fluctuate. We're seeing why I have some rejection away from sweeping this high here, reaching into this rejection block, reaching for these lows. Yes, doing the same. NQ falling behind a little bit, reaching into that 830 open and contracting between those two for now. Dollar moving higher in symmetry, which is beautiful. You also saw that symmetry break, or that divergence break as we break above this high into this bounce price range. So we got about 3 minutes until that 10 o'clock high impact news driver. There's a lot of news drivers, so there's some whipsawing that can occur. We can see how price breaks through the Civi, goes back into it, and then rejects lower, reaching back into this low. And the concentration of this wick, I'm not going to measure it. You can kind of eyeball it, and it's kind of near this low. We can see if price wants to create a breakaway gap here. Alright, price seeks the relative equal lows. Got about a minute left until at 10 o'clock. High impact news driver and the start of that silver bullet hour. I'm looking for aggressive directional movement towards this low. Some sponsorship here to deceive the liquidity there. NQ still lagging behind, just barely breaking below that 830 open. There's that news driver. See price gap lower. See if we want to create a immediate rebalance back into this 830 open, or if it just wants to dump lower off of this low. That's what I'm watching here. There's that immediate rebalance. A little divergence between the indices as NQ breaks below this low. NQ is kind of still in an internal range premium, and I'm failing behind. That aggressive sponsorship is not really seen. At this point in time, I'm going to retrace my stop loss to this high here. NQ giving up that deep, that internal range premium at that rejection block here. A little dollar retracement here back into this gap. Still contracting between them. If I go to a lower time frame, that's the 50-second chart, of course. Wanted to see if there's a gap here, but there is not. Body's respecting that immediate balance. Not showing that sponsorship though. back into that meteor bounce. This return back into the SIB can occur. We're spending a lot of time in premium. Looking for that sympathy decline in YM and ES, or YM and NQ. Possible IO fed into that gap. And there would be something like this. Dow retest the 830 open and complete redelivery into this gap here. NQ still holding that interrange premium here, while YM has that asymmetric movement, trying to draw towards these lows. We're approaching that 1 hour mark of my tape reading, where I started to get antsy, kind of like, come on, I don't really want to look at these charts anymore. I like to take a break, so that's something I'm also weighing into. The decision making that I am making. You learn a lot about yourself trading, and that's why I love it. You know, it's all psychology. You see the body's still respecting that meteor bounce, but we failed to get into that IO fed here. If we break below this low, I'm gonna not really anticipate that IO fed. All right, there we go. Reach back into that previous week high. And Q star and turnover also still hasn't broken the lows, but YM has. Back into the constant encroachment here. And the low. set my stop loss to the high. So, regardless of how this position moves, it's break even if I get stopped out. Relatively, I think it's like a few ticks. It's 2 ticks actually. But we are seeing some asymmetry with dollar moving aggressively lower. Exiting that 10 o'clock macro also, with the sweep of this low being what the macro is targeting. If we draw a fib, that lower upper quartile of that new day opening gap is there. We're spending more time than I'd like inside of this range. Really wanted to see it start breaking down once we broke below these relative lows, but it's just slowly moving lower. A lot of time distortion, which is kind of the expectation with yesterday's large range day. Well, overnight session's large range. It's more like a PM session really kicked off that bullish protraction. That IFN might be a contender again. With that lack of sponsorship that I wanted to see. And the lack of symmetry. Pretty soon I'm probably just going to close this position and move away. It's just kind of taking forever. It's not something I would like to sit through. dollar is still moving lower, approaching the lows, the current daily low. New 15-minute candle. This also converges the counter corrosion of that that inversion BISI. Now we swept the lows. Tracing back into that immediate balance. Fed is still a contender. I would love for it to just reverse off of this immediate balance though. The sell side liquidity pool for NQ is strong here. So many sell stops here. Good for that IFN. NQ is above its highs again. The high broken. There's that IFN. Well, I would like one tick, but there's the IFN. Whoa, what the? We break above the consecration of this gap, which happens to rest right at that Civi consecration. I'm gonna exit. I just don't really feel comfortable being in this trade anymore. If it does something like that, like it's just the IFN reverse. looking like it's going to retest it. 2x one more, then I'm out. That's it. So that concludes today. I think I'm back to about 50. Yeah, just $50. So I'll be back tomorrow. I'll see what price does here. It could realistically wick back into this gap and then move lower. I'm not interested in trading for the rest of this session. A lot of asymmetry here. Dollar moving aggressively lower. We're starting to get that symmetry with that retracement, but nothing I really want to sit through. A lot of contraction, a lot of garbage, which was kind of anticipated. I wanted to see if we could get a quick run from 9:30 into that 11 o'clock hour. We swept the lows barely and then traced right back into it. So we'll see what happens in the review. But for now, it's going to conclude today. So I'll see you tomorrow.